All right. Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, August 4th, 2020, and we are gathered for the Athens-Clarke County Unified Government monthly voting meeting of the Mayor and Commission. We're going to go ahead and begin with roll call from Clerk Spratlin.
Davenport.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Blink.
Here.
Wright.
Present.
Denson.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
Harrod.
Present.
Thornton.
Here.
Hamby. Hamby? He's absent. Okay. We have a quorum.
I see Mike Hamby present on the screen.
Okay. I'll check
All
your
right.
present then.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. First order of business is approval of the minutes of meetings of Tuesday, July 7th, Thursday, July 9th, Tuesday, July 14th, Tuesday, July 21st, and Thursday, July 30th. And I believe the Commissioner was interested in reconsideration of an item. Now would be the time to note that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to move that we reconsider the sixth emergency declaration, which was had a CDO attached to it that passed at our last Thursday meeting.
Do I hear a second on reconsideration?
A second.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards, a second from Commissioner Parker. If this passes, that will go to the end of the agenda for tonight. So all in favor of reconsideration?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right. Now do I hear a motion for approval of minutes of those meetings referenced?
So moved.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Denson, a second from Commissioner Harrod. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Minutes are then approved. Madam Clerk, do we have any written communication this evening?
We have none tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. Just want to note there are going to be several opportunities for public input tonight. If you have provided online comments regarding this agenda, anything received through 5 p.m. tonight will be entered into the record. Commissioners and I have received those, and we very much appreciate those comments. There are different rules for zoning items, which are items number 1, 2, and 3 tonight. There's an on-camera opportunity for each of those. And so first order of business is item number 1. This is the request of Kenneth Dious for rezoning from CG and RS8 to CGPD for the location of 2015 West Broad Street. Do we have any public input on this item tonight set up in the chamber?
Mr. Mayor, if I could read the ordinance, please.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Attorney.
Ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to amending the official future development map of Athens-Clarke County by changing the designation of a portion of a parcel of land located at 2015 West Broad Street from traditional neighborhood to general business and for other purposes.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the chamber this evening who'd like to speak to this rezoning request?
Thank you, Mary Gertz.
Good evening.
Commissioners, my name is Bob Smith with Smith Planning Group, and I'm here tonight representing the owner, Ken and Annette Dious, and I think Ken is with me here in the chamber tonight. Most of you remember this area along West Broad Street as part of the assemblage making up the racetrack service station rezone a few years ago. Since that time, the Steak and Shake has been constructed, leaving this parcel unimproved and undeveloped, except for a small parking lot, gravel parking lot. Since the construction of the Steak and Shake, our firm has been retained several times to explore various options and uses for the parcel, all of which were auto-oriented, contained a larger footprint and larger parking requirements than the proposal that is before you tonight. It also had a greater impact among the residents of Kalima Avenue. This proposal requires a very compact footprint. The building is less than 1,500 square feet, and the use requires only 5 parking spaces. And while we are requesting a waiver from the minimum FAR standards, this waiver allows us to protect the integrity and vitality of the neighborhood by limiting encroachment. As you know, the parcel contains frontage along West Broad Street that is already zoned appropriately. However, the area is only 5,900 square feet and too small for any use. We are requesting to rezone the least amount possible to allow the use. This allows us to conserve enough land to subdivide the parcel for a residential lot per RS8 standards. So it's the best of both worlds by recognizing the commercial frontage along Broad Street and providing an additional house along the frontage of Kalima. We've worked to design the site in a manner to buffer views from adjacent residents and from residents across Kalima. We've also worked with the Transportation and Public Works Department to help them keep the existing access drive where it currently is, instead of moving it further south along Kalima. Finally, should you vote to approve this plan development, we'll work with the Transportation and Public Works Department to design an access drive that prevents right-hand turns when leaving the site, further protecting the residents of Kalima from through traffic. We also accept the other additional conditions placed on their request by the Planning Department. Thank you for your time tonight, and I'll hang around to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate it. Anyone else in the chamber who would like to speak to this item tonight? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Ken Dious. I'm the person, of course, requesting the change. I have been around the neighbors and I met with the neighbors in regard to this particular zoning issue. Particularly, I think the person that summed it up best was Mrs. Marsha Yancey, that lived directly across the street almost from the driveway, but she doesn't. She says, Ken, to think about it, this might be the best we're ever going to get. We're going to get a small building and so forth. We're going to get a building that's only open in the daylight hours, probably from 8 to 6, closed on Sunday. Not a whole lot of traffic. She says, I think I'll take this opposed to something that may come along later. And I said, Ms. Yancey, I think you summed it up. I hadn't thought about it, but I think that sums it up. Of course, we tried to put a racetrack there. We had some problems with that. By the way, Mr. Mayor, that item was not voted on by council because of the neighbors got upset a little bit. Some of them, I pulled it off the calendar. This issue has never been voted upon this lot by mayor and council, commission and mayor and council before. I think it's a good go. Mr. Yancey, like Mr. Yancey says, it's going to be clean, very minimal lighting. So it's a good idea, and I think this is something that the neighborhood support and actually approve the rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Dice. All right, would anyone else like to speak to this item tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and begin commission discussion. Commissioner Link, this is in your district. I'll go ahead and let you begin the conversation.
Yeah, I first met with Mr. Dias and the developers and about 10 or so of the neighbors. It's probably been at least a year and a half, maybe closer to 2 years ago, when they first started planning this project. And it appears they've done quite a bit of due diligence, reaching out to the neighborhood. I only heard from one individual who had some concern about the driveway, wanted to make sure that there were no right turns out of that driveway. They've addressed that issue. I do remember when the racetrack was proposed, and that was a very controversial project. It's a fairly difficult piece of property because the commercially zoned part of it is essentially as is undevelopable. It's so small. So it certainly makes sense to subdivide that adjacent residentially zoned lot, and they're still allowing for a single-family residential parcel out of it. And there's a great deal of landscape buffer, and there's some really nice landscaping up along the street frontage on Kalima, as well as a sidewalk, which will be a great boon to the neighborhood. There's no sidewalk on that street as is. So I support this project. I think it's moved forward and only improved. And Mr. Smith has done a really good job of being sensitive to the neighborhood. I can tell you the other complaints I've had about that property have had to do with people. At least one resident called me hoping it would get developed because there's all kinds of wildlife coming out of it, and occasional vagrants and illegal dumping. So I think that it's high time that this piece of property got developed, and I do believe that this is probably, one of the best things that could come out of it. And there will be a single family lot opened up for development to make a nice home for someone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Would anyone else like to provide any input on this item?
I would like to speak.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I support this proposal. I listened to Commissioner Link, and she's done her due diligence in her district. I also have called, when this came up at our last meeting, I did call Mr. Dious to make sure we were all on the same page, and he had reached out to the community. I was not part of the last discussion, but whatever the concerns were then, it seems that they have disappeared. And I do think that, we need to be honest. We all would like that area of Athens to be a gateway, a beautiful gateway into the city. And that development of that parcel would add to those amenities and beautification that I think will help all of Athens.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other input? All right, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second it.
All right, have a motion from Commissioner Link, a second from Commissioner Thornton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. The request is approved. All right, the second item of business tonight is a request from the Smith Planning Group regarding a plan development at 594 Oconee Street. And if Mr. Attorney, you could read the ordinance on this.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to rezoning a parcel of land comprising approximately 1.68 acres and located at 594 Oconee Street with special use in CG Commercial General, in RM2 Residential Mixed Density Airport Overlay, to CGPD Commercial General Plan Development in RM2.
Thank you, Attorney Drake. I appreciate it. Oh, go ahead.
And RM2, a PD residential mixed density airport overlay plan development and for other purposes. I am done.
Okay, perfect. All right. Is there anyone in the chamber who'd like to speak to this tonight?
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Ed Lane with Smith Planning Group, and I'm speaking on behalf of the project at 594 Oconee Street, also known as the Oconee Street School. When our clients purchased this land, their impetus was to figure out a way to restore the schoolhouse building and to be able to preserve as much of its historic character as possible. So not only the exterior, which is protected with a facade easement already, but also the interior, some of the doorways and halls and the arrangement of that interior space. And that is, I believe, what the application before you is able to accomplish. As you may recall, the previously approved site plan for this parcel involved building 38 bedrooms inside the schoolhouse. And the interior would be almost completely rebuilt. And the plans also called for a parking lot and a swimming pool amenity area behind the schoolhouse, adjacent to some of the residential and multifamily lots. And so it's unique to be before you, being able to ask for a 75% reduction in the number of multifamily beds allowable here, and the way that that's made possible is by this mixed use arrangement with the office and the reduced multifamily. In speaking with the neighbors here and in the valuable feedback that we received during the Planning Commission hearings and from city staff, we came to understand what I would say the lament that many feel for what's happened to the Carsville neighborhood over the last 40 years. And so this project, the idea was that on balance, this project can make a significant step in restoring this historic landmark to the neighborhood. It would bring back life to this derelict structure, and it would provide small things like parking for the church on the weekend, and it would provide a sidewalk along the very narrow South Poplar Street. And it provides a transition in scale from the schoolhouse building back to the residential homes behind it. So on balance, we felt it's a step in the right direction at least. So I thank Commissioner Wright for working with us on the commissioner-defined option that I think further improves the application based on some feedback we received. And so I look forward to hearing your discussion and hopefully garnering your support on this unique project.
Thanks, Ed. Would anyone else like to speak to this project? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and ask Commissioner Wright to provide some input. I know she has a commission-defined option that I'll ask her to outline.
Well, first of all, I don't want to give up on the last topic. Shouldn't we have had 2 votes on Commissioner Link's project?
We should, and in fact, I'll circle back to that right after this. Yeah, there's a future development map. You're correct.
Okay, because this one's not a rezoning, and I was able to my commission-defined option is blended. It's in the report. So page 50 in our packet, you'll find the grayed out areas on number 3. You can see some information that came from Brad in the planning department that should have been the certificate of occupancy for the residential would not come before that of the schoolhouse and that historic renovation. So that's being done to cue that for the priority of this site development, which is the schoolhouse. It is completely it is truly a blighted area in the community, and I do believe it's going to cause some, besides the improvements in that actual project that Mr. Lane described very well, it's going to give a facelift to that entrance into that community and that neighborhood. And then number 4, that has been reworded to reflect the new drawings that came about from our discussions, which got rid of the second-story porch, which is kind of a standard in some of the designs of these houses, this multifamily option, and it is presenting it to have a lower elevation for that community in that area. But this is all multifamily zoning, and this is, I think, the zoning for this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Gertz, it's 24 beds can be in an acre. And so the 10 bedrooms that are in this, the only residential part of this project is not cramming it in there. And on page 55, you can see a before and after graphic that shows the elevation adjustments that have been made from the feedback. And they had 9 people who signed into the public meeting that was before the second Planning Commission meeting. And I think we've all been in contact with one resident who is really concerned about these changes in the residential part of the project. And I met with her today, and she does live by a bad example that came about in 2010. And I have several work requests to follow up on what's an existing property that has some concerns to be addressed. But I think that having bad examples helps us build to not continue bad examples. And hope that you guys can see that this has been taking in its input, and the sidewalks is going to be a great addition as well. So let me know if you have some more questions on what's been put together for today's approval.
Thanks, Commissioner Wright. Any other commission input on the Oconee Street project?
I have a little bit of input.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, I want to thank Commissioner Wright for making some of these changes to assure that some of the activity in these properties is moved to the back of the property. I had some concerns about two fairly large residential structures, and the character of the surrounding neighborhood being a lot of historic small cottages. But I see that the nature of the property itself really wouldn't allow for multiple smaller structures. There's a sewer easement that can't be developed on, and there's some topography and required setbacks. I mean, and as far as the density goes, it does, conform or actually fall significantly below what the allowed density is. There's no rezoning even being requested here. So I really don't see any reason to not approve this project. It would, I understand, Cars Hill has changed a lot, even in the 25 years or so since I hung out there. And I regret that a lot of these cottages are disappearing and being replaced by these larger 2-story and multi-family student-oriented developments. It would be nice to get some more protection over there, but this is an empty lot. It's not like a historic structure is being lost. In fact, this will enable the restoration of the historic schoolhouse, which is certainly a very historic property. So I hope that, I don't know, I'd just love to see this neighborhood get a little more attention and a little more protection.
Well, Commissioner Link, I really appreciate your studying this and that extra diagram that we were able to share. It's not needed in the commission defined option, but it does show the challenges in the back of this property, and they are keeping the buffer between the next residential. And I know that it's hard to see these original units there, but it's all zone multifamily. So even when it's a single family dwelling from the original Cars Hill, they can pack 4 or 5 people in those, because the more than 2 unrelated is not applicable in multifamily. So even the smaller houses from the original part don't necessarily have a limited number of people living in them. But I'm hoping that the transformation that the schoolhouse is bringing to the area, having a working environment there where people who can work there might become involved in wanting to live nearby, or that they're able to use the rail to trail and the greenway coming and going from work or on their break. So I do believe the schoolhouse renovation is going to give, as you said, some new added attention. And if we can get people who are owner occupied, or the people who currently have the houses there, if they would not sell them to the developers and get word of mouth out, because they are viable for people to want to live there, and because of all the amenities in the area. So hopefully we can get the people to not sell to the developers. But are there any other questions?
Any other commission input on this item?
I make a motion we approve.
I'll second.
All right. We've got a motion and a second for the commission defined option. Motion from Commissioner Wright, second from Commissioner Link for the commission defined option that keeps the work in the front and the party in the back. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. I am going to circle back to item number 1. I apologize, y'all. I should have caught this first run through. We actually needed 2 votes. So we're going to retally. The first vote for number 1 is to modify the future development map. Since this is not under the current future development map. So I'd accept a motion for modification of the future development map on 2015 West Broad Street.
So move.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Link, a second from Commissioner Edwards to modify future development map. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. The second vote is for the rezoning for this planned development.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could read that ordinance. I read
If you would. Thank you, Attorney.
Yep. An ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to changing an approximate 0.67 acre portion of a parcel of land located at 2015 West Broad Street from CG Commercial General and RS8 Single Family Residential to CG PD Commercial General Plan Development and for other purposes.
Thank you, Attorney. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
There's- All right. I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards, a second from Commissioner Parker. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Thanks, y'all. All right. We are going to move on to item number 3. This is a request from Chris Church for freedom from bondage for special use in the RM1 zone on 0.46 acres that are at 202, 204, and 206 Highland Park Drive. Attorney Drake, could you read the ordinance on this one for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to special use approval of halfway houses in RM1 mixed density residential district for 3 parcels of land located at 202, 204, and 206 Highland Park Drive, comprising approximately 0.46 acres in total and for other purposes.
Great. Thank you much. And is there anyone in the chamber that would like to provide public input on this item?
Hi, you guys. I'm Chris Church. I talked to Miss Jean yesterday, and she said it'd be a good idea to show up in case you had some questions. But what I really want to let you know is I thank you so much for your kindness and all of the city employees, Rick and Planning and Zoning, and all of those that have helped us with this. The Georgia Association of Recovery Residents came and did a site visit because we are getting certified through them now. And she looked at me, leaned in, and she said, "So how has that process been?" And I said, "It has been fantastic." And she said she hears a lot of horror stories from other counties in the state. And I just, so many times we hear complaints, and I wanted to give everybody props. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Chris. Is there anyone else in the chamber who wants to speak to this? And then, Chris, we can, if you'll stick around, that way you can answer any questions if people do have questions. Anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and begin commission conversation. I believe this is in Commissioner Harrod's district.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as I said at the last meeting, I think this is a good project. It's needed. I think it will help the women that are involved in this get their lives back together and move on. And so it's not impactful upon the neighborhood. So I don't see any reason other than to vote for it. So I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, commissioners. I've got a motion from Commissioner Harrod, a second from Commissioner Link. Any other commission input on this? All right. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, motion carries. All right. Request is approved. All right. That concludes our planning and zoning portion of the agenda tonight. The next component of our agenda is the consent agenda. These are items typically approved in one vote, and these are items tonight under Section E, items number 4 through 12. Would any commissioner like to remove anything from the consent agenda this evening?
Motion to approve. Oh.
I'll second.
Mr. Mayor, we have one ordinance from item number 4 that I need to read.
Thank you. If you could read that for me, Judd.
An ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to loading zones on Clayton Street for other purposes.
Thank you, Attorney Drake. And for the public, because we are modifying the layout of Clayton Street from 3 travel lanes to 2, that means that loading zones are going to shift to the side streets or adjacent streets. So I do have a motion from Commissioner Wright, second from Commissioner Link for approval of the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Those items are approved. Thank you, everyone. All right. First item of old business is item 13. This is the award of a contract to provide onboard transit advertising management services for the transit department. Would any commissioner like to speak to this item? Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we had some discussion at the agenda setting session about some limitations that were put there on what percentage of our fleet could actually have the wraps. And that just got me looking at the policy a little bit more deeper. And in a lot of ways, it just seems very antiquated. And I do apologize for not being able to get some of the changes that I thought should be there earlier. But because of this, I would like us to go ahead and table this so that we can review the policy a little bit and compare it to what other communities in the area have. Because I think one of the reasons that we have kind of a low percentage of our advertising possibilities being taken up is because there's actually more limitations to our policy than there is in most cities. And so I think that we can improve this policy a lot so that we can actually increase the amount of ad revenue we're getting here. So I make a motion for us to go ahead and table this for till the next month's voting session. If management says that that's okay for us to do if the timeline works.
Manager Williams, I noticed that this agreement begins September 1st, 2020. Do we have any continuing opportunity? Should this be tabled tonight?
If I could, Mayor, I just had to restart my computer as well, and I need to ask staff about that. So if you can we come back to this item and give me a second to check with staff on that?
Absolutely, we can do that. We'll move on to the next item, then we'll return to this one. All right, item number 14 is TSPLOST 2018 Project 10. This is public art for the roundabout at Whitehall and South Milledge Avenue. There have been some amendments to this item. You might remember that last month we talked about wanting a matte finish, not a shiny finish, on the item, so that the gleaming statue that will be in the middle of this roundabout will not distract the drivers and detract from the functional purpose of the roundabout to keep folks safer. So certainly be interested in any commission input on this item.
I'll move to approve.
A second.
Second.
All right. Any further input on this?
I'll just say that I think it's a lovely piece, and I look forward to seeing it out there.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Manager Williams, you ready to move back to 13, or should we move forward? Do you need a couple minutes?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? And I'm sorry, I'm having some computer issues. We are fine to table until next month on the transit advertising.
Okay. And I will say, I was on a committee when we created our transit advertising program. And I do remember at the time we sort of wanted to start small. It was a new innovation for Athens-Clarke County, although I think, like Commissioner Denson, really commonplace now. And so, probably a review would be in order. So we've got a motion to table. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, I've got a motion to table from Commissioner Denson, second from Commissioner Wright. Any further input? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Same sign. All right. Hearing none, this item is tabled. All right, and we're going to go ahead and move on, and I apologize. I have to expand the size of this PDF on my screen to item number 15, which is the 2020 update to the Public Utilities Department Service Delivery Plan. This is the infrastructure element and capital improvements element. So be interested in any commission input on this item.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards, second from Commissioner Link. Any other input on this?
Kelly, Mayor, I have, if you don't mind.
I'll get Commissioner Harrod, then Commissioner Hamby.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks. I just on project 2, a priority 2, public health, project 2-301, alternate sewer solutions. Could somebody explain what that means to me?
Manager Williams.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And that's a follow-on from last Commissioner Harrod. You did identify, and this is in keeping with some of the conversation from the agenda setting session. We do have a work session scheduled where we're going to talk about septic and things of that nature. Y'all want us to look at different alternatives to sewer and sewer extensions by perhaps some regional wastewater approaches. And so we have I believe we've scheduled a work session for that coming up. As you know, there's $5 million set aside within the plan for that. And there's some other funds, depending on how those conversations go, that we could put towards that.
Okay, thank you. That's what I assumed it was, because as several of us have had this, we've been down this road before and wanting to look at some ways in which we could improve sanitation handling. That's not the right word, but without necessarily running sewer into some places. And so improving septic tanks and that kind of stuff, regional solutions, those kinds of things. I'm certainly interested in looking at that, and I assume that's what it was, but I just wanted to confirm. So thank you.
Yes, sir, and we can bring some of that information to you at the work session as well.
Mike?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. And Commissioner Harrod basically asked my question, and I'll just add, we've been talking about this alternate septic systems for the past 10 years, and I look forward to the work session to see how we can quit dragging our feet on it and get something done with it. So thank you.
Thank you both. Any other input on this item? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, we are moving on to item number 16. This was the Public Utilities Department restoration of the drive-up customer window. We had lots of commission conversation last time about variants of how this may work. And it was indicated by the manager that this was not time sensitive. So certainly if commissioners would like some additional time, it'd definitely be possible to table this and return to it at a later date. Commissioner Wright? Right then, Commissioner Hamby.
I saw some just some visuals that were sent as a follow-up from the agenda meeting, but I didn't capture if it had been addressed a way for us to follow through with the great idea that came forward last time about it being a walk-up, so that we didn't end up having a lot of cars. Was there any additional research done to learn about that version of it?
Manager Williams, was that part of the staff consideration?
Well, the design of the window would be the same either way. And Commissioner Wright, I think, did see the schematic for that. There would be some additional improvements needed to protect people standing at the window from the traffic lanes. So that the walk-up window certainly is possible. It doesn't address some of those issues we were trying to do for convenience, but we can do it either way. I don't know if we could accommodate both in the same space. Be one or the other.
Recall we mentioned some Americans with disabilities kinds of needs being one of the considerations that we may want to consider if this was to be a walk-up rather than a drive-up window.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it does provide ADA accommodation without forcing those folks to get out of their vehicle because of the protections we put in place to try and keep pedestrians and vehicles from being in the same space. But, we can, again, there's time. We can look at this and come back to you with a different plan if there's a consensus on what you'd like to see.
Commissioner Wright, did you want to follow up before I move on to Commissioner Hamby?
Yeah, I look forward to hearing what everybody else is thinking, and I do understand how there might need to be sort of a barricade. You would walk into a space so that a car would not come upon a person standing there. But for handicap, it needs to be accessible for handicap, walker. There's a lot there certainly is an example that we can follow. So I look forward to us making it pedestrian oriented, because it sounds like that window was already there probably when it was a bank. And I'll listen to what else others are saying.
I've got Commissioner Hamby and then Commissioner Link, and then Commissioner Davenport, were you?
You ready for me?
Go right ahead, Mike.
Sure. I guess I'll be just quite blunt. I'm not real sure why we're talking about this. Certainly we don't allow drive-through windows or drive-throughs in a lot of our corridors. I don't know that we allow them downtown. So if we're wanting to have an example to follow, if we're going to allow this, and we need to have the discussion about allowing other people to do it as well, which I'm not in favor of that, but so I'm not sure why we're even bothering with this right now.
Got Commissioner Link and then Commissioner Denson.
So we do have drive-throughs for financial transactions through ATMs at our banks. I know Synovus has the drive-through ATM, which I have driven through and walked through. It's pretty accommodating to both vehicles and people on foot. I know the other bank on the other end of downtown at the 5 Points intersection, I forget what bank it is, they also have a drive-through ATM. I can't recall if they have an actual drive-through teller. Does anybody know if they have a live teller in that drive-through?
They do, as well as the First American Bank across the street from City.
So if those banks are getting away with drive-throughs in downtown, there an exception for banks in that drive-through?
Either they're previously existing or they went through a PD process. That was Synovus. They went through a PD.
Yeah. Okay, they must have gone through a PD. I see the need for a drive-through when it comes to, accommodating folks with disabilities. I also see the convenience of a walk-up. I prefer to walk up to the ATM when I'm downtown. So it's, I'd rather see us explore something that's both. I don't think that building right now is very conducive to enabling folks with disabilities to enter the building, correct? And it is a historic building, so I don't know that we want to alter it very much to accommodate a ramp or something. So I would like to see, some more exploration of this and something that could accommodate both pedestrians and a drive-up window that would enable folks with disabilities to easily access the services of the water department.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Denson?
Thanks, Mayor. To me, it sounds like we have a lot of questions that it's probably going to be best for us to go ahead and table this, but a couple of questions that I still had that came out of actually looking at the schematics is a little bit of concern about how many cars that we anticipate, how many customers we anticipate actually using this service. And then also what the capacity is for how many cars we could actually fit in line. And actually even thinking so that we don't I'm a little concerned about the ingress and egress, as I brought up before, cars possibly backing up on Lumpkin, wanting to turn in. And then also as, turning out on Hancock, again, where we've created those new protected bike lanes. And I know it got brought up last time that we don't think we have an increased number of customers. We already have customers going there, but most customers are not parking next to the water service business because they have limited parking there. So a lot of those people are parking somewhere else and walking to the office. So I do think we probably have an increase in the number of cars exiting onto Hancock across that protected bike lane. So I would like to get some kind of analysis of how many cars we think that we'd actually have coming in and out of this, and what the capacity would be for us to be there. But yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people bring up some good ideas, like good points that, you know, we're trying to discourage idling cars and honestly car traffic in general downtown. And it seems like this policy potentially goes against what those priorities we kind of are moving towards for our downtown district. So I think I'm in favor of the walk-up, and especially if we can figure out a creative way that we could still provide ADA compliance to people who could possibly, again, maybe having a designated parking spot they could pull up to and having somebody come out or whatever that could be.
Thanks, Tim.
I guess with that, like, unless there's more discussion, I'd make a motion for us to go ahead and table this.
I'll second.
Patrick, did you want to comment on this item?
No, I was just going to motion the table as well.
All right. So it seems pretty clear, just in terms of commission interest, folks would like a walk-up space and some provision for support of those who might be differently abled, kind of around access, you know, and that could be a car hop kind of a setup, or whatever else staff would find creative. All right. So I've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. So that item is tabled. All right. We're moving on to item number 17. And item 17 is the SPLOST 2011 program financial update and recommended amendments for remaining funds. And for the public, it's often the case when we get relatively close to the end of expenditures around a SPLOST package, and we have really kind of two overlapping packages right now, 2011 from 9 years ago and 2020 from last year, that there are some remaining funds, either because we've got more revenues than anticipated, or because some projects have not cost as much as necessary, and state enabling SPLOST law allows us to move funds into existing categories within that SPLOST package for some of those kinds of projects that may undulate or vary in terms of overall type. So, for example, if there's a sidewalk package in a SPLOST program, you can deliver some more funds to construction of additional sidewalks, or the same thing with stormwater facilities. So be interested in any commission discussion of this item. Commissioner Hamby?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So I do have a couple of questions. It looks like on the, excuse me, on the fire station number 3, it's proposed to spend $170,000 on the generator. And my question is, so it's listed as $170,000 on this, but in the next item agenda, staff has proposed a capital project for the same generator at $140,000. So where's the $30,000 going? That's a question for the manager.
Sure. I think it could be that we've gotten an updated quote since then, but we can certainly give that explanation.
So we're expected to vote on this tonight without the updated explanation?
Well, I mean, on all the projects, Commissioner Hamby, and certainly taking, I'm available for questions up to and including the meeting. We can, any funds that aren't used for these projects that they can go back to, that they will come back to you for reallocation for other projects as well. So,
but we don't know that this is going to be the case with this. I mean, we're already going to go ahead and vote for $170,000. I mean, we can. I'm sure y'all can find $30,000 to spend somewhere that we wouldn't know about.
Well, if you give me some time to check with staff on that $30,000, I certainly can give you an answer.
Yeah, I'd like an answer.
Okay.
I think voting on it, it's only responsible that we have an answer.
Mike, did you have questions about any of the other items?
No, I mean, I'm sure I could go through and nitpick all of them, but I just noticed that one. I mean, if you're asking for it in two different places and you give us two different prices, then it just begs for questions to be raised.
Other questions about this agenda item?
I mean, I'll make a motion, Kelly, to hold that particular one until we get an answer, if we want to do that, and then vote to approve the rest of them.
Well, we've gotten. I'm learning from staff. We've gone through and gotten an actual bid. I think the estimate was what was placed in there, and the actual bid came in at $116,000. So anything extra goes into contingency, which is that extra amount. That again, all of these projects, some will hopefully all will come in under budget. Some will go over, but anything left over will return to contingency for your decision in the future.
But that's not what this says, Blaine.
Well,
this says it'll go to other things for the fire station.
Well, the capital cost, Commissioner Hamby, are used, established using estimates, which include some level of contingency. That the next agenda item, the $140,000 was based on a bid. There have been made. We've gotten some updated information, since then. It's before the $6.4 million. We've got a variance on one of those of, $20,000 or $30,000. We can certainly give you a detailed response about that.
I guess my concern is that you're asking us to vote for $170,000, but the project what you need is only $116,000, and that leaves the door open for you to spend, according to what we're saying, to what I'm reading here, other projects that may be remaining contingency fund will be used within any of the fire station facilities. So you're already allocating the other contingency funds within the fire station facilities.
No, let me be clear. So
I'm reading what the budget item says.
Okay. Well, I'll respond, Mayor, when you need to.
Yeah, Manager, go ahead.
Thank you. So the SPLOST, some of these are estimates. All of these are estimates for the project concepts. With the CARES Act funding, which again is in a very compressed timeline, Central Services went ahead and started the process of bidding some of those in advance of the recommendations, so that if the commission did agree that we would be able to acquire these things before September 1st. If you don't agree, it was just the effort of trying to get the bids. So in this particular instance, we had just received those bids, so that is an updated estimate versus an updated cost versus the estimate in this agenda item. The excess funds here, any of these concepts, whatever they cost, the excess funds left over will come back to this SPLOST 2011 bucket, if you will, for your reallocation in the future. So in the case of the 170 versus the 116, the difference in the $54,000 would come back to you for reallocation in the future.
Well, that's not what item number 6 says. When it says any remaining contingency funds will be used for other miscellaneous capital lifecycle improvements, specifically at any of the fire station facilities.
Mike, do you want to make a motion to limit the expenditure to $116,000 and then move the remaining $54,000 into overall SPLOST contingency for future consideration?
Yes, sir, I sure will. I'll make that motion.
Mr. Mayor, prior to the motion, I need to read the ordinance itself.
Thanks. If you do that, Attorney Drake, I appreciate it.
An ordinance to amend the special purpose local option sales tax 2011 budget for Athens-Clarke County so as to provide additional funding for special purpose local option sales tax 2011 projects and for other purposes.
Got a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other commission input on this item? All right, so just so everybody's clear, the motion is for approval of the item with the modification of category number 3, fire protection services and safety equipment, to be reduced to the $116,000 as per the bid received by staff with the additional $54,000, then moving into SPLOST 2011 contingency that'll be part of the future allocation by the mayor and commission. All right, so I've got a motion from Commissioner Hamby, a second from Commissioner Link. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, we are moving on to item number 18. Item number 18 is phase one of the CARES Act funding recommendations from staff. And we've got a commission-defined option, which we'll get to in just a minute. But Blaine, if you could begin, just for the benefit of the public, describing the CARES Act funding tiers, the component that has to be previously expended by this organization, the component that has to be expended by December, and then the component that may be projected into next year.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And we're still, the CARES Act, as many folks know, was done by Congress to provide some funding to the nation in various forms. We were fortunate with our transit department to receive some CARES Act funding, about $10 million to help with operating and capital. We've also received some CARES Act funding out at the airport. This funding is funneled through the state of Georgia, and there was about $4.1 billion that was awarded to Georgia, and 45% of that could be transferred to local governments, and the state made an allocation. I think large local governments may have received a share of about $600 million. That's greater than 500,000 population, which left about $1.2 billion over for the rest of the counties in Georgia. So there's a phase one and a phase two. Phase one is 30% of that total. Our share, the Athens-Clarke County allocation of phase one is $6.6 million. And we are, we've gotten some guidance from the state. There was a presentation. There's some Treasury guidance that we have been following. I understand they've got some more webinars scheduled later this week. But the driver behind this was that this $6.6 million, in order for us to bring that here to Athens-Clarke County, would have to be obligated as the action verb there by September 1st, which is a little over 3 weeks away. And going back to the last conversation, caused us to try to look at certain items to see what we could accomplish within that time period to make sure that we wouldn't lose those funds. And so this is very compressed time frame. It's a great deal of money, and we're still learning compliance. But that is the essence of this. We're hopeful that there is the phase two, which, if we do the math, would be hopefully around $15 million. But we've not gotten that figure from them. That's just based on that 30%, 70% type ratio. And in any case, any funds that are obligated by September 1st, or if there's a phase two, all funds have to be expended before December the 30th of this year. And there's some other qualifiers to that, but Mayor, that's the high level explanation.
Thank you, Manager Williams. And I've just gotten notice today from Georgia Municipal Association that they're providing a guidance seminar on the 6th. They said day after tomorrow. Is staff attending that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Manager Williams. Attorney Drake, is anybody from your office following this?
Yes, sir. I can speak to this. As the manager says, we as attorneys on the attorney listserv for the Georgia Municipal Association have received updates on this matter daily, and it's moved very quickly. GMA yesterday actually sent to David Boyd, the finance director, a model resolution, which he forwarded to yesterday afternoon about 4:44. And this resolution is required to be approved by Mayor and Commission to accept the CARES Act funding. I've reviewed the resolution, and one thing it requires, the resolution basically authorizes you as the mayor, the commission will authorize, and it's a model resolution that all local governments are having to receive who are getting this funding. It authorizes you as the mayor to execute what's called the Coronavirus Relief Fund terms and conditions. And of course, the resolution says that I, as the attorney for the organization, have reviewed it. But it also says that it says the city, which ours will be the unified government, bound through its governing authority, hereby acknowledges that it has legal counsel review the agreement and that members of the governing authority itself have reviewed the agreement. So we're going to need to send that agreement out to everyone. And we'll request you review it. But because of that, Mr. Mayor, I think it would be prudent if we consider moving this action to next Tuesday so I can get that agreement out to everybody. And also give me a chance to look at the CDO to make sure we're in compliance, because there's some, if you look at, when you read the terms and conditions that of accepting this money, it's very clear that you have to follow what is authorized expenditures, and we want to make sure that, so I can have time to make sure I've looked at all the CDOs to make sure we're in good shape. Because I have not had a chance to look at the CDOs because we've been pressed getting ready for the litigation matter on Thursday. So I would request a little extra time for that, but also you have to right to execute this resolution. So that would be my recommendation at this point.
I know commissioners have worked hard thematically to make sure that as much of this funding as possible gets into community hands for community needs. So I'd be interested in commissioners just speaking thematically or specifically as you'd like to that interest.
Mayor, I have some comments.
Good, Commissioner.
So it's a little frustrating that we're at this point. This money has been made known available. I sent Manager Williams a text about 3 weeks ago about this being part of the CARES package, along with a letter. Now at the last minute, we're hearing from Attorney Drake that he needs more time to look at a resolution that we could pass. I mean, staff put together last week a list that they wanted done. And now we need more time to look at a resolution. We can go ahead and pass this list tonight and these recommendations tonight, and then come back and vote on a resolution at another special called meeting. So, this pandemic has been going on for what, 5 months now? And I think there's some things that we're allowed to do in this. I mean, if you go and look at Attorney Drake, if you go look at what Cobb County's given away $50 million in grants. Gwinnett County's given away almost $75 million in grants. But here we are having to go back and look and see what's allowed and what's not allowed when other communities are already doing a lot of the stuff that's on our list here. And I think in order for us to be aware of what other organizations need or what our partners are needing, they need to plan too. So, in the email that we got from Manager Williams, what was it, the week before, he was asking us to vote on this tonight so that we can get things moving. He just mentioned the sense of urgency about all this, about spending this money. I mean, we obviously have a list of things that we want to get reimbursed on, including a $35 lamp, including a $17 extension cord, including a $99 desk chair. I mean, if we can find, if it's so hard for us to figure out ways to get the help into the community's hands, then we've got a problem. And if it's, I know it's easy to buy the chairs and to buy the lamps and to pay for the food, and this virus is not easy. There's businesses that need help. There's people that need help, and we've got a list here that can get that moving. So, Attorney Drake, what's the problem with approving this list and then reviewing it? If there's problems, let us know about it. But we're moving too slow on this, y'all. I mean, and it's not right.
Well, I can only say that I just received the resolution. I actually didn't get to look at it till this morning, about mid-morning, and read it. It said you had to review the terms and conditions. It's a model resolution that's been issued by GMA. It says we have to execute to accept these funds as a condition in the terms and conditions that you've read and reviewed it. I can only say that I'm just delivering the message of what I'm getting as soon as I can get it. I think one thing to understand though is GMA is just offering the communities that were direct recipients received their money much easier, or much earlier than we did. And I have started looking at the guidance, and I am optimistic that we're going to do the things that I've seen in the CDO just glancing through it. I started looking at that this afternoon. I'll apologize, Commissioner. I'm doing everything I can to stay up with everything, but I've only got so much time. Right now, unfortunately, I have a hearing we have to be ready for on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. It's taking everything I've got to get ready for it. But
well, I have a job.
Even still, I didn't get the resolution.
Attorney Drake, I have a job too, and all of us have work we need to do. And we've been called to special called meeting after special called meeting. And I can appreciate the work that's being done. But, when we were voting on this tonight, and Manager Williams, you just said there's a sense of urgency about it. And that's where I'm going by. So we spent some time putting this list together. We sent it to everybody on Friday. And it's a list that we worked through. So, I don't know what more to say.
Commissioner, I'll express that, having contact with a lot of cities around the country, that there certainly was frustration that in the CARES Act composition, it was only local governments of 500,000 people or more that received the direct allocation, and that there was this secondary route through state governments for every size government smaller than that. Part of what has been promoted in whatever the next package that Congress puts together is direct allocation to localities rather than this sort of routing that creates challenges.
Well, I can say this,
but also know that we were notified on, June 29th about, if I remember correctly, the date of the letter that came from the governor's office. So I agree with that. But that doesn't change the fact that we could be moving quicker.
Well, Mayor, if I could address some of this as well. So it is true that we sent out some recommendations, and certainly with such a large grant, we want feedback from y'all. We want guidance from y'all. And I think it was phrased earlier what staff wanted. And it's not necessarily that, but what we know about the grant is that for every dollar up to $6.6 million that we have obligated by September 1st, committed, but not necessarily spent until December 30th, then we recapture those funds. So when the pandemic started, finance set up a special line item code for COVID expenses. These are expenses that weren't planned, and we have expended funds on those. Now, and that is part of the CDO, and so not in question. And so those have already been obligated and expended, and we think that meets all the criteria. And so that means that they would reimburse us that $1.4 million, which could then be reallocated for other purposes. And of course, you have the full budgetary authority with that. I did send out a recommended list, and Commissioner Hamby's correct. The commissioners came up with a different approach, and it's fine. And we're trying to do this real time. And the reason why I was pushing for some quick feedback from y'all is that with less than 30 days and with a purchasing ordinance to follow, and for instance, and I think these are good ideas, an emphasis on some of the IT equipment. We've got to be able to purchase the equipment and obligate those funds. And we're still trying to learn if that's an actual check cut to the vendor, or in the case of community organizations of your choice, an agreement that has to meet these federal funds compliance. And so doing all of that in a very highly compressed time frame of just a few weeks caused us to go ahead and throw something out there to get the discussion started. And I think the caveat was conveyed that things could change based on what we learned from the state. And so my understanding from our finance director, who's been on top of this, is that the state has scheduled some additional training this very week. I think it's healthy that we're having this. You certainly should be aware and have time to sort through this and come up with what you would like to see. And to Attorney Drake's point, we just received a model resolution from GMA, which is trying to bring some uniformity throughout the state. There are terms and conditions that Judge said, Attorney Drake just learned today, that you would have to sign on. And so there's just a lot of moving pieces and parts. And I will tell everybody it's not optimal. And certainly there's nothing afoot here other than trying to make sense of what's going on, learning from the state, hearing your priorities, seeing what's possible, understanding what's legal, and then getting all that accomplished in the next few weeks so that we don't lose any funds back, that could have otherwise come here. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. See, Commissioner Link?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that because Athens-Clarke County is a municipality of less than 500,000 people, we had to basically go through the governor's office to get these federal funds that are designated for us.
Correct.
Which means that in going through state government, we are beholden to the gratuities clause, which prohibits us from the kind of grant program that counties like Gwinnett and Cobb are able to take advantage of and direct assistance to small businesses and agencies.
I had a conversation with the attorney about that, and I think that's not an absolute. Attorney Drake, if you could.
I've really started trying to look into that question, and I'm not certain that is the case. So I'm optimistic that we're going to do a similar program to what Annette is doing. I just would like the chance. One of the things the agreements GMA is recommending, I've read the guidance, the federal guidance, and it seems to indicate we can do that type of program. But one of the things that you're reading the agreement and that the GMA is recommending is, if you have any questions, the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget has someone who's there to answer the questions. So we might can seek guidance there, but I'm not prepared to say that. I think we may be able to do that. I'm optimistic, but I'm not prepared to say that with total certainty tonight, because I just haven't had a chance to research that fully, but I will say if the commission is, I hear Commissioner Hamby's concern about being proactive. If you wanted to approve this tonight, subject to the review and approval of the county attorney to move it forward, that you certainly can move in that direction. I still think it's more prudent. You are going to have to eventually approve this resolution before we can spend the funds. I can't change that. That's just a requirement of the, we just got the resolution yesterday. The David Boyd sent it to me at 4:45 yesterday. And I've got to send you out a copy of the terms and conditions because for whatever reason, it's strange to me the governor also wants the elected officials to say they've read it. But I can only comply with the terms and conditions set forth by the governor at setting the funds, and that's one of them. So, but I'm open to whatever. I certainly will do everything I can to make sure we move it. I don't want to delay this at all.
To follow up, Commissioner Link?
Yeah, so basically we're beholden to the governor and how we can help our constituents and help the thousands of people in our community who are suffering through this pandemic, which is made worse by the government's lax control of it. So I also I have issues with how the agencies that are designated to get some of these funds were selected. I hear from one agency saying that they were approached and asked to submit a proposal, and then another agency says they were never asked to submit a proposal, even though they requested information. And that initial agency that was asked to submit a proposal, I don't see them listed in the funding list. Yet at one point, I saw a line item for, what they proposed in the same amount that they proposed, but that agency wasn't listed. So I'm just really confused. And I feel like the public and our partners are really confused about the very process for determining these items. And I wish that we have not had a work session related to the pandemic since probably May, if even then. We really need to sit down and talk about all aspects of this crisis that we're going through, as far as economics goes, as far as direct assistance to the community, and as far as health and mitigation. Commissioner Thornton and I have been sitting in on these meetings every week with our independent agency health providers, and they have some real and immediate needs. Needs that should have been met over a month ago when it comes to testing. And I just before this meeting, I was able to get some information from the neighborhood health center to share regarding testing machines. We are in a crisis when it comes to testing in this nation, quite frankly. The more tests we can process and determine, the sooner we can get a hold on this thing. And it's obviously up to us as a local government, because the federal government and the state government is doing next to nothing to assist us in controlling this in our own community. In fact, they're tying our hands while people in our community die. So I'm asking that we consider allocating at least $60,000 of this funding to buy 2 machines to process tests. And actually, I would like to see us allocate more like $100,000 so we can pay the $40 per test kit fees to
Jesus,
a whole bunch of the test kits.
Just a second, Commissioner. Manager Williams, if you could describe what the initial outreach to community agencies consisted of, and then could you talk about any follow-up to those agencies that are embodied in the commission-defined option?
Yes. Well, the first thing I want to say is that
Jesus,
we, understand and had heard from the resiliency package discussion that the community needs were important, and I hear your concerns about having a more expanded opportunity for these things. And again, we were focused on the September 1st deadline. So who could we get to? Who could, we could get an agreement to deliver the services that were eligible in a quick fashion. And so by and large, these are folks that we've gone to before. And I've heard from y'all that, you want to expand this throughout the community. It just given the tight time frame, it was more of one of just the practical capturing the funds. Hopefully with phase 2, we'll have a little more time to widen that net. I have not spoken with the agencies and the CDO, but assume that the commissioners have, and that that is they're capable of spending those funds within by the December 30th timeline.
They have invoices ready to go to purchase these machines, and they can order the kits right away. And with the $100,000 allocation, we can get 2 machines, one that will process 4 test kits at a time and another that will process 2 at a time. The process time is about 45 minutes. And that will also allow us to get 1,000 test kits.
I've got Commissioner Davenport, Commissioner Denson, and Commissioner Thornton.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to agree with Commissioner Hamby now. We've been, I was looking at, we first created the resiliency package funding, the idea, and talking about these things that we're going to do to offering this direct aid to our community. Look, back on March 20th, we've been talking about the need for us to be able to put money and help people with their rent, with their mortgages, with the fact that they're out of jobs, getting food, paying for their utilities. So we've been talking about this since March 20th, and finally found a way that other communities are doing this. And I believe that we can do this. And it sounds like very likely legally we are pretty positive we can do this. I agree. We just need to move forward. We have proven and shown that we are willing to be bold in our decision making when it comes to the health protections. And I'm very glad that this body has done that. But we also need to be as bold when we're talking about protecting people's livelihoods, the ability to keep their lights on. Unemployment benefits have ended now. We all know this. Right now, the federal government's completely showing themselves incapable of being able to make another package. We don't know how long that's going to be. We could possibly see like a flood of evictions here happening. We need to take some action. I fully support us going ahead and passing this list. If we can find a way to put in Commissioner Link's proposal for that money I'm fine with that. But I think I want to see us pass this list tonight. It's like a list that we've needed for months, and we finally are doing it. And then passing the resolution if necessary in a couple days of a special called session or on next Tuesday. But I want us to go ahead and get this moving in motion. We know this is going to take a little bit of time anyways to be able to talk to all these entities and get this money going forward. We'd be doing that work while we review this resolution and while we all sign it. I want us to go ahead and take action now on this.
Commissioner Thornton.
I'm going to ditto everything that was said. I called the magistrate court yesterday. As of Friday, there are 868 evictions on the books, and that is during the time of the moratorium. The moratorium, I think, is lifted or is about to be lifted, and landlords are already calling the courts asking, can they evict now? So if it's 868 now, what is it going to be when the moratorium ends? We need to be more proactive. I agree with Tim. No disrespect to the manager's office, but this did not just happen last week. We've been talking about these issues early on. I'm so confused. I don't know which pot of money is coming out of where, but I know we have some money and we need to put it in the community. And the other thing I have a problem with, organizations that are doing this work on a daily basis without a dime compared to some of the other things that we fund, they keep getting shut out. This list was dedicated to the folks that have not only demonstrated the work, but have done the work with the least amount of resources. I think that I'm not even going to bring up about the public service announcements, the expenses that I've seen. I've talked to Manager Blaine earlier about that. I don't want to be, I think that we can make a motion, pass it, subject to the attorney doing whatever he needs to do. And if we've got to make some changes, the other thing that happens is, and please do not let me forget about Commissioner Link's suggestion about the machines. I really want to make sure I don't know how that fits, but we need to make it happen. But please know this, if we pass this tonight, subject to whatever the attorney has to do to, get to us and get it done, we can look at this in October to see where people are, where they are, and make adjustments. But to send us back and forth, and we have worked hard when some folk haven't even been here to work on it, I think that's really, y'all are asking a lot. Y'all are asking a lot. So let's pass it. Let the attorney get back with us, meet with all of those groups that were recommended, make sure they understand after we understand, because apparently nobody on this call seems to know what we're doing. And then let's move forward. And we will tweak it as we go. We need to show this community we care about this community and stop buying all this other stuff that has nothing to do with no virus and nobody's lives.
Okay, Mr. Hamby.
Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion, and I'm going to make some adjustments here based on Commissioner Link's suggestion. So the motion is going to be to accept the CDO with the following change. Underneath phase one, our request, lower that amount to $1,334,742. So take that down by $100,000, and then add into phase 1B community, which means as long as they spend it by or have it obligated by December, the $100,000 that Commissioner Link has asked for the health center, and then all of this pending the approval of the resolution that the attorney spoke of that will be at a special called session. So that's the motion there.
All right, and I can schedule that resolution for next Tuesday when we're already gathering.
I'll second that.
Can I ask Commissioner Hamby for Commissioner Hamby, would you on the I did notice this and I know it came up earlier, but under phase one, the public information TV digital ads,
right.
Use a terminology that's a little bit more expanded there, a little more flexible, just maybe a public information advertisement, so that radio should be included?
I took that directly from their phase two request, Commissioner Denson, but I'm fine with allowing a more broader language for that.
Okay, so maybe that's public information advertising?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Manager Williams.
I just want to clarify too, because I know it is confusing to Commissioner Thornton's point. So there is $6.6 million that we're aware of, and we can obligate up to that much before September 1st. Okay, and then hopefully there'll be a phase 2 that will be more funds that could be used for similar purposes or whatever y'all want. In both cases, phase 1 and phase 2, those have to be spent before December 30th. Of the $6.6 million that we don't obligate before September 1st, then that money stays with the state or returns to the state. So I tell you that to say that I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on the CDO that all funds have to be expended by December 1st to maximize the $6.6 million. We have to obligate those funds before September 1st. And we will do our best to get as much as this obligated before September 1st. But that which we don't get obligated, that will return to the state. And then we can try at it again with phase 2. So I just want to be clear about how those two buckets of funds work as far as we know now.
All the more reason to take action tonight.
I agree. I mean, the last thing we need to do is, if we've had money allocated to our community, is that we essentially lose it, so we can't use it to help people that need it, and it goes back to the state. I'm not interested in that happening at all.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further input? All right, and we'll be back here next week with the resolution that Attorney Drake mentioned, along with any recommended revisions that he should see pending his review. All right, Attorney Drake.
It was actually an ordinance that needs to be approved tonight.
Go right ahead if you could read that.
It's an ordinance to amend the annual operating capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide grant funding for the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, CARES Act, Coronavirus Relief Fund for expenditures in response to public health emergency and for other purposes.
Thank you, Attorney Drake. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, so we've just done a great job approving some aid for the public, some financial aid, monetary aid to provide for a great variety of particularly housing and food needs, as well as for some operational needs that we've had as an organization as we've had to work differently in this time. Item 22, very similar, is some functional support for the community to create a policy to establish a parklet pilot program to support outdoor seated dining during the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to give a great deal of thanks to those members of an ad hoc group who were assigned to work on this. And so that's Joey Tatum, Linda Ford, Jason Leonard, Commissioner Mike Hamby, and Commissioner Russell Edwards. Thank you all for your work on this. There are, of course, many communities around the country trying to find safe ways to do the things that are also going to create economic prosperity. Just read in an article 2 days ago in The Atlantic concerning public education that outdoor environments are 20 times safer than indoor environments right now. So the more outdoor seated environments we can create, the better. I know Commissioner Link has provided a commission-defined option, so Commissioner Link, I'll call on you first.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your input on this option. I've been advocating for parklets since before we even had a pandemic. This is something that I would have liked to have seen on the streets of downtown Athens years ago, and it's something that is commonplace in other cities before the pandemic. And since the pandemic, and since businesses have started opening up, it is basically the norm across the nation in cities large and small. I was in Massachusetts for 3 weeks, and the city of Southampton, which is home to Smith College, lined their entire main drag, a 4-lane state highway, much like our Broad Street, lined the whole main drag with concrete barriers that were painted by local artists, and the entire main drag was filled with outdoor seating for bars and restaurants, and most of the side streets also had that parklet space available. New York City, just in the past couple days, Mayor Bill de Blasio declared that their parklet program will be permanent. It's not just for the pandemic. It's been such a success that it's going to be permanent. So it's high time. It's beyond time that we adopted this. In the meantime, we've gone an entire summer with our bars and restaurants struggling to make ends meet with very limited indoor seating. And yes, some of these bars are completely ignoring the guidelines for 30% lower capacity indoor seating. I've requested some changes to this policy to assure that only businesses that are following those guidelines as outlined in the governor's order with 35% capacity, table seating no more than 6, tables properly socially distanced at 6 feet, and tables arranged so that to avoid gathering at the bars. So only businesses that have those conditions within their businesses would be eligible to take advantage of this parklet program. This is a carrot. You know, we're getting a lot of pushback on our stick approach to these bars that are super spreader environments and are blatantly violating the governor's orders and as far as capacity goes, and they're certainly not paying any heed whatsoever to public health requirements and our local mask mandate. But there are establishments that are, and I do hope that they will take advantage of this parklet program and that they will expand their seating and that folks can go out and safely enjoy a little socializing in an outdoor environment, properly distanced, in the fresh air. And hopefully we can bring some of our infection rate down, and we can allow more people to feel comfortable actually enjoying and patronizing those businesses. So I did have the mayor help me with this, and I'm just requesting a handful of changes. Basically, the policy applies to bars and restaurants that are defined in the sidewalk cafe ordinance that are in compliance with the provisions of the governor's emergency order as it pertains to indoor seating and social distancing in bars and restaurants. And I include that language from the governor's order at the bottom of the policy document that I sent out to y'all. It also has a caveat that patrons in parklets must remain seated while eating or drinking, which is also in compliance with the governor's emergency order that people should only be served while seated. I'm also putting down the caveat that alcohol service in these parklets should end at 10 p.m., regardless of whether you're a bar or a restaurant. We're treating these business types exactly the same. So yeah, it's just emphasizing again that alcohol service in these parklets will end at 10. I know there are fears that, you know, these areas could turn into wild street parties. You know, hopefully by ending service at 10 p.m. we'll prevent that. And this will be a nice civilized place for, you know, mature folks to sit down and have a couple drinks in a safe environment, and for some of these businesses to expand their opportunities to do business. So I do hope that y'all will agree to this, and I hope that the mayor can say a few words himself about, you know, why it's a good idea to invite these bars into this program, you know, seeing as long as they adhere to these, you know, strict public health guidelines that have already been laid out in the governor's order.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is that a motion?
Yes, that is a motion to adopt.
Seconded.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Link, second from Commissioner Parker. I'll say, you know, it's clear whether eating or drinking, the seated environment and the outdoor environment are just significantly safer. And I think this provides the best of all worlds. You know, does recognize that we want to see people continue to be prosperous and have their business have every safe opportunity. Certainly our College Square seating environment is a big piece of that, and this will add to that. In the agenda report, you will see the report from Andrew Saunders in Central Services that he certainly doesn't even perceive this is the end of the story, but that this is iterative and that there's going to be a review of this in a couple of months, because we know I mean, certainly if we've been paying attention to any of the national and global experts, that we're going to be in a continued state of some need for many months or prospectively a year down the road. And so I'm glad that staff is going to continue to look at what other options may be on the table. So other input on this item? Commissioner Denson?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I would like to hear exactly the reasoning for the two different price structures for the parking spaces. I'm assuming it's because of the availability of parking spaces on those roads.
To use a technical term, I think it's that the Clayton spaces are kind of janky, given the dust and construction going on over there versus the non-Clayton spaces.
And I'll add that there is we've altered the recommended fee structure. Staff had recommended $5 per parking space per week on Clayton and $35 per space throughout the rest of downtown. And at the mayor's suggestion, we came up with $5 and $20. So that's, a fairly low and much more affordable rate that hopefully will allow these businesses to take advantage of this and actually make more money and add to the revenue base.
I guess I would recommend that for the janky spaces that maybe we just wait. To me, these costs are too high. If we're honestly trying to help these people who are at very limited capacity of what they're selling anyways, and the $20, if we're talking about this is going to last a year, so that's over $1,000 per space that we're expecting the struggling establishments to pay for. And to say if they have 4 spaces they're trying to take, that's $4,000. I don't think this is necessary. I don't think it's in the spirit of what we're trying to do. And so I would just honestly, I would recommend that we waive these fees.
Other input?
I'm really opposed to that. Or for the first 45 or 100 days while this is an experiment.
Sure.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes, I'm looking at the parklet part that was in the commission defined option. That's in our packet. Getting these things on the day of our meeting is nearly impossible for me to process. Has the commission defined option been vetted through the attorney's office?
I sent this out yesterday.
No, I meant has it been vetted through the attorney's office? Because I know there's one.
I didn't get any response.
Yes, I can speak. I review it. We reviewed it. I also had I reviewed it. I had Michael McNeil who worked with the committee that the ad hoc committee, the mayor recognized, and we're comfortable with it.
Judd, I think they're referring to the CDO.
The CDO by Commissioner Link.
Yes.
Yeah.
We reviewed it. Yes, we did. We looked at it today. First thing this morning.
Okay. I'm just going to speak right now to the price for the park to have a parking space. And I thought that due to when we have festivals, that we had changed some of our special events so that the person having a festival and having a beer tent or maybe taking up parking spots for art tents, back in the day, it seems like 300 years ago since we had festivals and arts and crafts tents. But I thought that we changed it to where the parking spaces didn't have to be paid for because the events were bringing people downtown and helping fill the parking decks. So I appreciate Commissioner Denson bringing that part up for how much it would cost, $10 a week for 52 weeks. This, according to what I'm reading, this is good for 100 days for us to renew. So we are in a temporary spot for this, and it seems like charging, especially for this first 100 days, doesn't seem like a good thing with all the spacing and the percentage that has to be cut down on availability. So I don't think that we need to charge for that.
Commissioner Hamby?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. And I hate to be the sort of different voice here, I guess, but I'm going to make a substitute motion. I'm going to make that substitute motion because in the committee that you assigned, Mayor, we discussed bars and we discussed doing it for just restaurants. And I believe it was the consensus of that committee that we start this off by looking at just restaurants for that standpoint. And I'm going to say this too. I mean, certainly looking at what we tried to do and what's being questioned in front of the Superior Court with regards to bars is limiting the activity. But here, when we're allowing for a parklet, that's encouraging the activity that we were trying to limit with the action that we took last week. So it kind of is sending a bit of a mixed message, so to speak. I understand the concern about having more of the activity outdoors, but the thing is, it's going to turn into a beer garden outdoors, a big beer garden outdoors. But so I think if we start off like the committee has suggested by doing just restaurants, that we can see how it works, we can see how it doesn't work. And I'll say this in regards to the price. I mean, I think the price is more than fair as it's established, simply because, if you were doing construction right now downtown, you'd be paying $10 a day for a space. So they are actually getting a break on the spaces for that. But I'm going to make a substitute motion to accept the committee report that's laid out in the agenda packet.
Second.
All right, we've got a substitute motion from Commissioner Hamby, second from Commissioner Edwards, input from Commissioner Herod.
Thank you. I'm going to support Commissioner Hamby's motion, but I did have a question on the previous version. So just so I'm clear, so the intent was to allow bars in these parklets under the condition that these bars were following all of the governor's guidelines about occupancy and this, that, and the other. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. My understanding.
Okay. And so my question, I guess I had two questions. One was just, from a legal point of view, whether we can condition one upon the other. But the other was, so what would happen if you provided, if you had allowed, let's say, Andy's Bar to be in the parklets, but Andy's Bar was subsequently found to not be limiting capacity in the way in which they're supposed to be doing. Would they then have their permit to be in the parklet pulled? How was that going to work?
Attorney Drake.
Well, that was my understanding of the intent of including those guidelines, and they wouldn't qualify for being a health park, if they were found to be in violation. And I did think about this, though. I think they would be entitled to a hearing before we had to issue a warning under the governor's order. Then we have to issue a citation, and then they would have a hearing in state court, prosecuted by a solicitor. So they would be able to continue to have the parklet until they were found. They were adjudicated as guilty of a misdemeanor. I do want to clarify that for everyone. But that would be my understanding. Then they would not be able to have the parklet. You're correct, Commissioner Herring. And I believe that I can only speak. I would want Commissioner Link to clarify that was her intent. But that's the way I understood it.
Yeah, that was my intent. That if they were, if they did go back on their agreement, which they would be signing an agreement if they were to apply for one of this parklet program. If they were to break that agreement by not adhering to those guidelines, then they would no longer qualify for the program. I also want to add, addressing the late night street party thing, and that being the reason for leaving bars out of the original proposal. From what I understand in the original proposal, there is no last call move up. Like the restaurants can continue to serve alcohol till 2 a.m., correct? Restaurants that apply for parklets could continue to serve alcohol in those parklets into the late night. So what is there to prevent any of these restaurants from devolving into late night street parties? What if Fuzzy Taco, which is a corner establishment, which could rent, a large number of spaces on 2 streets, what if they were to go ahead and promote themselves as a late night drinking establishment? They serve food, but they can just keep on serving drinks until 2 a.m. There's the whole intention of adding that 10 p.m. caveat is that we understand the later people stay out, the longer they drink, the more likely they are to lose their inhibitions and neglect those social distancing guidelines. So, we did propose to have a last call at 10 p.m., with the idea that we are going to hopefully prevent a good amount of that behavior in drinking establishments. So over and over again, we get accused of just coming down hard on the bars. And not all bars are bad actors. There are plenty out there that are making every effort to operate as safely as possible. And they're begging. They are absolutely begging for outdoor space so they can assure that they can operate safely. And yes, like the mayor said, outdoor activity is many, many, many times safer than indoor activity. And if we don't allow these bars to have outside space, more and more people are going to cram into the indoors. And that's more and more people who are going to be more likely to be exposed. If we at least allow them to access to this outdoor space, hopefully we can stave off a few infections.
Yeah.
Commissioner Thornton.
I guess I was just listening because I heard good parts in both positions, but I'm kind of concerned when we have this 10 o'clock last call. I mean, we're getting ready to go to court on Thursday, and we don't even know how that is going to pan out. So I just feel uncomfortable putting a time limit. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. I am so uncomfortable putting a time limit that we may have to go to court again. I'm just going to listen, but
since this is a new program and it would be a new opportunity, the time limit would be sort of in keeping with the way that typically we roll out new programming, because we create those parameters in those public spaces that are owned by the public.
We can't get challenged for taking something away. We're creating something new and we're giving something with this program. We can't get challenged by giving them extra space, but it has a time limit.
Okay. All right. Then that makes sense to me, I guess.
Public space with but a time limit.
And I will say, I think, this is my first time even having this under consideration. But I think I agree with Tim about the charging and waiving the charge. 1 minute we're saying we're trying to help people financially through this difficult time, and now we're charging them additional money. I understand if you go downtown, you got to pay anyway, but I think we need to be, especially if it's only 100 days, you said. I would feel better waiving any fees.
Commissioner Hamby?
Sure. Mayor, I'll amend the motion if Commissioner Edwards will amend his second, or Commissioner Harrod, whoever did it, to waive the fees for the program and to say if it's only restaurants, but restaurants have to stop serving. No outdoor. Last call is at 10 o'clock outdoors for restaurants.
Commissioner Edwards,
using parklets.
You were the second. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, that's fine.
Commissioner Denson?
Thank you, Mayor. And I definitely understand where the committee is coming from on this and the concern about encouraging behaviors of people coming out and drinking. But if we're being honest with ourselves, that's already happening downtown. Hence why we have taken other steps and measures, because we realize it's happening downtown and we're trying to curb that. And as was brought up earlier, it is much safer to have these individuals are inside these bars. They're inside the bars drinking. They're there. They're going to continue going. As school gets started up, they're going to increase. It's harder for our police to actually be able to even tell how many people are there for the capacity issue, because they have to enter the building. It's much harder for them to look, especially when we have limited amount of officers being able to go downtown to do this. By moving it outside, I truly believe, and I think other cities have shown, that it makes it a safer situation. People are going to drink either way. Let's encourage using the carrot method. We're using the stick too. I think a combination is always the best way to go. But this is a carrot that's encouraging people to drink outside in a safer situation rather than inside. And I agree. I mean, right now the bars there are good bars caught up in this, struggling. And I think this policy is crafted in a way, Commissioner Links is crafted in a way that encourages those bars to continue safe practices and encourages some of the ones that aren't doing it to have safe practices. I think it is, and especially if we're doing this as a trial, again, this is a trial. So if we use this as a trial, it makes sense for us to go ahead and use this trial for the bars and restaurants. If this trial comes back and shows that the bars turned into chaos and there's just beer gardens everywhere, which again, beer gardens, in my opinion, are safer than bars are right now. Outdoor beer gardens are. But if this trial shows that doesn't work, then we can pull the bars out. Let's go ahead and try this with the bars and the restaurants. And if it doesn't, and with the fees waived, and if it doesn't work, then after it's 100 days, then we can go ahead and redo this and take the bars out. But let's go ahead and give it a shot because the bars, people are drinking either way.
All right. One more input from Commissioner Hamby.
Sure. I'm sorry, Mayor. And I would just say to everybody that, if the bars were adhering to what the governor's orders were or are, and if the bars were following that, then we wouldn't have taken the action that we did last week that we have to all show up at court on 9 o'clock on Thursday morning to talk about. So knowing that, why would we then give 100 days for them to be able to say at that point after 100 days that we're taking it away? So it is, in my mind, it is sending mixed messages, and we've seen by this. I mean, and believe me, I'm all in favor of beer gardens, but not when a pandemic is going on, because even in a beer garden, when you're real close together, it doesn't matter. At this point in time, you're close together like this, and you're drinking without a mask on outside. So, I think let's start. Just my final point. Just start with the restaurants. So let's move on with this and see where it goes.
All right, one more from Commissioner Link, and then we're going to go ahead and move on with the vote.
Yeah, again, I'll emphasize alcohol does not give you COVID. It's the behavior that alcohol leads to that can give you COVID. We are mandating that the behavior be the same, whether you're eating or drinking in one of these outdoor parklets. We are mandating that there be certain amounts of seating, that the seating be 6 feet apart. And if anybody does want to take advantage of this outdoor seating, that is mandated to be safe, whether you're eating or drinking. The conditions apply regardless. Then you also have to transfer those safety conditions into your interior. So it's a way of giving them a carrot and asking them to do a little bit more to earn that carrot.
All right, so there's a substitute motion on the floor from Commissioner Hamby, a second from Commissioner Edwards. It takes the core proposal from the committee, eliminates the fee for this 100-day period, and ends service at 10 p.m. So does everybody understand what they're voting on in this first round? All right, Clerk, if you could.
Allison has a question.
Allison?
Yeah, so you're clear. We're talking.
Wait, lost you.
10 o'clock last call for alcohol. So you still have the 45 minutes while you're at the restaurant services. I just wanted to be clear.
Cleanup period.
10 o'clock last call. Okay.
Yeah, 10 o'clock last service, 45 minutes to clear the table. All right, Clerk Spratlin, if you could do a roll call.
Hamby,
Yes.
Davenport,
Patrick, I can't hear you.
Do you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead. Say it again.
No.
Parker,
No.
Link,
No.
Wright,
Yes.
Denson,
No.
Edwards,
Yes.
Harrod,
Yes.
Thornton. Thornton,
Ovita, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay. 5 yes, 4 no.
Given the current 9-member composition of the commission, does that carry, Attorney Drake?
No, Your Honor, Mr. It takes 6.
All right, take 6. All right, so we're going to go back to the.
Is it an ordinance? So an ordinance requires 6, but does any action other than ordinance require more than majority?
Let me pull the chart up.
Come on, Patrick.
All right, everybody, you could do some yoga stretching for just a moment while the attorney pulls up the charter.
The reason why I'm wearing a mask.
Just a second, everyone.
It's just a policy.
There's no ordinance with this, as far as I'm aware.
It's changing the alcohol beverage ordinance, which currently prohibits any person from having his or her possession any alcohol beverage outside.
Yeah, we did that last week, Russell.
Say what?
We changed that last week. On July 30th.
And is that part of our motion to reconsider?
No, we don't. No. This is just a policy change, y'all. There's no ordinance. Judd didn't read an ordinance before we voted.
That's right.
Can we officially have 5 minutes break?
Judd, are you ready?
Yeah, I am Mr. Mayor. The charter provides that the adoption of any ordinance shall require a vote of at least 6 affirmative votes. So I was checking to see whether or not there was anything in the rules, and I don't see anything in the rules of procedure. So I guess it would appear then that this could be, that we could consider this passed as a policy matter.
Okay. All right.
All right. So
bars are not allowed to participate in the parklet program. Let's make that clear.
That's correct for this first 100 days under this motion that's just passed.
So during these warm summer months, people will continue to pack into bars and breathe in each other's faces and get COVID.
Yeah, Commissioner, we'll go ahead and put out public notice so that everybody understands what's available now.
Mayor, I have a question for the attorney.
Commissioner Denson.
So I guess my question is, so by default, we just go, is there any kind of anything that states in our charter that by default we go to majority votes rather than, like, is there any precedent for that rather than that? There is obviously precedent for the 6 affirmative votes, but is there any precedent just for a simple majority?
I can't speak to that. I can only, I guess the clerk is indicating that. I'll only speak what I'm reading in the charter. It just says ordinances. I would ask the clerk or those who've served in the past how you treated it customarily.
Clerk Spratlin, I do recall on non-ordinance items, a simple majority having carried items in the past. Is that your recollection as well?
That's correct. I can't give you specifics, but that's my understanding. Majority unless it's an ordinance.
Okay, and Attorney Drake has clarified that. Okay, we do have one additional item. It's a reconsideration of our most recent emergency declaration. And Commissioner Edwards, you asked this be reconsidered, and you had that right since you were of the affirmative votes when this was done last week. If you could go ahead and discuss the proposal tonight.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to strike the CDO language that was adopted last Thursday that allowed for a mask wearing exception while seated eating and drinking, where originally our mask mandate just had the exception read where there was an exception when eating or drinking. And that is consistent across many different municipalities and local governments across the state. We were subsequently sued by El Centro, Moonshine Bar, some other bars. Went to court last Friday, and Judge Eric Norris was perturbed about this provision, questioning how it might be enforced with the seating portion added on. And so I would like to restore the original mandate, which has the strength of other municipalities behind us, the strength of being enforced already for quite a long bit of time, and go ahead and reconsider that motion and strike the seated exception and have it just read back to the original, where there's an exception to mask wearing while eating or drinking.
Or smoking.
This is an ordinance, so if I could read the heading of it.
If you could read that, Attorney Drake.
An ordinance for the sixth declaration of a local state of emergency related to COVID-19 and for other purposes.
All right, thank you, Attorney. All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards. Do I hear a second? I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards, second from Commissioner Wright, input from Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the attorney with this suit against us. Is it specifically citing the while seated portion of the mask ordinance, or is it against the mask ordinance in general?
It's against the mask ordinance in general.
Okay.
But yes, it's against the mask ordinance in general.
So it was the judge that pointed out that portion.
My understanding, I'm not sure who it was who pointed it out. My understanding, there was about 20 minutes of discussion. The judge had some concern about that section.
So, I just want to make it clear that the intent of putting that provision in there was so that it would encourage the following of the governor's order: patrons of bars and restaurants only be served while seated. Obviously, that is not occurring at many establishments downtown, and we have no means of compelling that behavior other than through a provision such as that.
If I could respond, just having had conversations with other communities, it has been pointed out that in the governor's order, prior to that sort of bullet point of ideal provisions, it does use that language as practicable. And so I think when Savannah developed their mask ordinance that then served as the model for us and for most of the municipalities in the state, that challenge of the as practicable language was part of the consideration.
Yeah, well, we do have establishments operating as we speak that are following this kind of mask practice. It's certainly practicable. People are keeping their masks on while they order and taking their drinks to a table and sitting down. I don't understand why it's not practical to do something like that. It takes one finger to pull your mask down.
Other commission input? Commissioner Wright?
Thank you, Mayor Gertz. I think I heard somebody else second instead of me, and since I didn't vote for this the first time, I'd like it to be a clear motion and second from those. Does it matter? As far as a reconsider, I'd rather somebody else do the second. I think Commissioner Parker might have chimed in. Yeah, it was not me. And if we'll just, for the record, make sure that's Commissioner Parker's second.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. So for the record, Commissioner Edwards made the motion. Commissioner Parker seconded. Any other input? Commissioner Harrod?
Thank you. Sorry, I have a question for the attorney, and it's maybe not a fully formed question. So I understand, the intent of this is to try to remove something that the judge seemed to have an issue with, that is making it difficult for us with regards to our broader mask ordinance or a mandate. So on Thursday, we've all been subpoenaed. We've all got to show up at court at 9 o'clock in the morning. If we were to leave our ordinance as it is right now, and obviously if we were to prevail, then everything stays the same. If we show up and the judge rules that part of the CDO is not enforceable, what happens?
Well, if you're saying if you don't do anything and just don't take any action tonight, we'll have to wait and see how the judge rules, whether he upholds the mask mandate or whether he, and to clarify, the hearing on Thursday is not on the actual legality of the mask mandate. It's whether or not he issue a temporary restraining order against continue the restraining order against our enforcement of it. We're still going to have the legal issue of deciding the ultimate legality of it. But so I think Commissioner Edwards is correct that the judge really seemed to have a real problem with that language. And I think that that we should consider that in how that might make the judge on whether he decides to enjoin us from enforcing it. And 20 minutes is quite a bit of time for a judge to spend focusing on one thing. And I would point out that is what's different than our mask mandate and the other governments around the state at this point. If we don't do anything tonight, it'll go before the judge as it is, and if we change it, it'll go before the judge in a new form. We'll still be enjoined from enforcing it until the judge rules. But that's basically where we stand right now.
Commissioner Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Kurtz. I also remember that the judge said that he would like us to work on this between last Friday and this day. And I think this is us working on it, reconsidering it and voting for it to be back to where it's more, that it's similar to the other municipalities. So I think that's part of what was requested as well. So I appreciate those who voted for this, bringing it forward for reconsideration. I'm ready to vote.
Right. Madam Clerk, could you do a roll call, please?
Edwards?
Aye.
Herod?
Yes.
Thornton?
I believe Commissioner Thornton has dropped off the meeting.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, yeah.
Hamby?
Yes.
Davenport?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Link?
No.
Wright?
Yes.
Denson?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. Item number 20 are board and authority appointments. Everybody's received that list from the clerk. I'd entertain a motion for acceptance of those.
So moved.
Second.
All right. I've got who made the motion? I apologize. Commissioner Denson made the motion and Commissioner Wright seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. So we thank everybody who's applied for these positions. We have long benefited from a very engaged community, and that certainly was the case this time. And thank you, all the commissioners who were able to participate in these interviews. So to read for the public, members of the Airport Authority for a 4-year term will be Keith Sanders and George Grant Tribble. Members of the Classic Center Authority for 4-year terms will be Dexter Haynes and Tress Small. Member of the Hearings Board will be Terrence Jordan. Member of the Historic Preservation Commission will be William Van Linden. And member of the Planning Commission will be Catherine or Katie Goodrum. So thank you all for your willingness there. Couple of brief items through Adopt Athens. Gina Bodio has adopted the island at the entrance of the Epps Bridge crossing subdivision at Epps Bridge Parkway and Ridgeview Drive. And then Manager Williams has a notice of a grant acceptance. Manager Williams, can you describe that grant for us? It's a solid waste grant for $2,500 for an internship. So we do need to go ahead and do round robin. Anything else from the manager?
Sorry, y'all, I'm having some issues. It's the delay with me clicking back in, so I apologize. Thank you, Kelly, for covering that. No, sir, I don't have a report this evening.
All right. Anything from the attorney?
No, sir, I don't have a report this evening.
Anything, Madam Auditor?
No, sir, I don't have a report this evening.
All right. All right. I will begin, and then we'll go do reverse numeric order tonight. Begin with Commissioner Hamby. Auditor Maddox may not have anything from her perspective, but I have something to, in the moment, digitally present to her, and I will physically present it to her later this week. Stephanie has now been employed by the unified government for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
She began here in elementary school. And so we are very excited to celebrate that. And so
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Your 10-year pin for you. As folks in the public sector know, that's vesting time. Very important in the public sector. Exciting time. So thank you, Stephanie, for all the work you've done in finance, as well as in initially what was the auditor's office and now the office of operational analysis. So thank you very much.
I appreciate Mayor Gertz.
Have a handful of other things to let the public know. Of course, we received very recent word that there was an after-action report regarding the May 31st protests, and great deal of the controversy rising out of that was use of force. And do want to let the public know that as soon as the Police Advisory Board is stood up, which right now is looking like this autumn, this will be the first item assigned to them from my office, which is a review of use of force protocol within the police department. Also want to let everybody out there who is looking for a very important part-time job know that tomorrow, the 5th of August, part-time jobs at the Board of Elections for this autumn's election season are opening up. You only have to be 17 years old. High school students, you may be learning digitally, but you can also learn in the flesh. No better civic education than working for the Board of Elections. They've run this rabbit once during the pandemic. They can set you up safely, and you can earn $1. So please get out there and apply for those positions. I encourage young folks in particular, but anybody feels comfortable applying for those positions that will be opening tomorrow. And lastly, in a sad note, we did learn today that Chief Dale Allen, who had very, very capably served as our probation chief for over a decade, and did so with such humanistic and warm and innovative presence, has passed away. And so I'm thinking of him this afternoon. I was here as a commissioner when he was hired, and he really brought us into, I think, a new era in terms of justice through the probation office. And many, many communities around this country learned from him, and we're a far better community for his presence. So my heart is with his family and his loved ones and everybody who he worked with and who worked around him tonight. So I'm going to pass it over to Commissioner Hamby, and then we'll proceed in reverse order to Commissioner Davenport.
Thank you, Mayor, and certainly my condolences as well to Dale Allen's family. Our community over the past few months have lost a lot of good community members, and a lot of families have certainly been impacted over the past few months as well. And certainly with former Commissioner Carty Kilpatrick and C.L. Moorhead and Marty Schimmel, and I don't want to. I mean, it's just a long list of community members who've been impacted and who have given a lot to this community, and I hope we can find a way once this COVID situation is over with, and we can start gathering back where we can recognize, certainly like Jerry Neesmith. I mean, at our meetings, I often think, okay, what would Jerry say that would annoy me right about now? Or what would Jerry say that I would go, oh yeah, that's right, or make a good point. So at any rate, I'm hopeful that we can do that at some point when we can move beyond our discussions on COVID and get back to where we need to be. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Thornton.
I got three. I'm really. I'm just kind of thinking here about Dale, and he kept wanting me to come visit him, and I never did. And it just makes you, put a little knot in your stomach. But I enjoyed the times we were together, and this community has lost another great person. I want to give a shout out to Athens Alliance for their school book bag giveaway this weekend. It was amazing. It was well organized. I think Charles Hardy did a great job bringing community folk together, the local government together. It just went smoothly, and it was a beautiful day. I got to hang out with the mayor. We kept missing each other a little bit, and Mike Hamby. So I really, and I didn't realize we have a new director at the Thomas Lay Park. I think his name is Kelly. So I got to hang out with him a little bit, and I feel good about that because Thomas Lay's in my district. I also want to, I sent you an email about environmental justice webinar yesterday. Commissioner Davenport, myself, and Dr. Tawana Maddox were on there to talk about environmental injustices in poor and communities of color. And the two communities that we still have unanswered or unfinished business is the Pitter Road community and the Dunlap Road community. Patrick may want to say more, but I was really impressed with the caliber of people that were on that call. I think when we start talking about this as a commission, we'll have some good resources and contacts to address environmental issues in our community. And lastly, tomorrow at 12 o'clock, I'm going to be working with the Northeast Georgia Business League. Shane Blackwell is the president, and we're doing educational, informational on TADs, tax allocation districts. And I want to thank Shane and Michael Smith for sharing their resources. There will be a gentleman named Joe Johnson and Joyce Rhodes that are very knowledgeable. I think sometimes we just need different voices. They may say the same thing, but sometimes you just need a different voice to hear from. So it's just an educational, it's just 1 hour. I want to thank County Manager Williams. He's also going to be joining us tomorrow to talk about what we're planning here with TAD. So we're just trying to be proactive and educate as we go. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
I don't really have anything to say other than, like all of the other commissioners and staff members that found out today about Dale Allen's passing. It's a great shock. He was a nice guy. He served this community for many years. He did a great job. And just I'm thinking about his family and friends right now. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Russell.
I share my condolences to the family of Dale Allen, a great public servant for this community. just wanted to thank all my colleagues for the work that they put into this body. I'm looking back the 5 months we've come on this pandemic roller coaster, and I'm really proud to say that I've served with this government from the very beginning, when we were the first government on the East Coast to enact a shelter in place, to one of the first communities in Georgia to enact a mask mandate, and then the first government to move up last call in an attempt to rein in some of that most egregious viral spreading behavior. I'm really proud of the work that all of my colleagues have cooperated on to put the public safety and public health of Athenians at the foremost priority, recognizing that business relief, economic relief operates in tandem with public health, and I'm really proud to serve with this government. One small note, I think y'all probably saw the reports in the newspaper of another spike in crime in the northern part of my district on Deering Street. It's been an issue for the past 6 or 7 months. I was preparing a proposal before we kind of got subsumed with the pandemic budget policies to put a few more street lights in the Deering Street area. That's a true pedestrian thoroughfare late at night. There's many multifamily residences on Milledge, and those residents travel through Deering to get downtown. So it has a tremendous amount of foot traffic late at night, and just a few more street lights here and there would really help enhance the safety and security of the residents there. So I would appreciate all my colleagues' support as I work with those residents to try to make that community a little more safer and secure. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Russell. Tim?
Yeah, thank you. And I'll also start just by my condolences to Dale Allen's family. I was, during the short time I've been on the commission so far, I was able to work with Dale on a number of different things. And I was very impressed with just his ability and willingness to think outside the box, to listen. And it's definitely a shame that we've lost him. I hope he rests in peace and rests in power. Just got a few things. The first is I hope that every Clarke County School District family out there, every family that has a child that was enrolled in Clarke County School District last year or in the spring has heard about the Pandemic Electronic Benefit Transfer, the PEBT program. Every child in our CCSD program is able to get $256.50 through this program, because basically it's open to any child that of a family that's on SNAP, or any child who gets discounted or free lunch program, which incorporates the entire county. So every CCSD student is applicable for this. And so if that is you, if you have a child in CCSD, which we have so many, please contact your school if you haven't already, and they can get you the information that you need and tell you exactly how to enroll in this program. And I talked to a few people who work with our schools and asked about, what if this is a very privileged family who doesn't really need this money? Would they be taking this money away from somebody else? And they said, no, the best thing to do would be take that money and then donate it to one of the fantastic programs or nonprofits we have here that are helping people who are struggling. So please, I urge every Clarke County School District family to take advantage of that program. Another thing on the mayor brought up the elections, and I know we've talked about it a little bit, but we're running out of time, so I'm again urging that this body go ahead and adopt a policy that we are going to send in absentee ballot request forms to every Athens-Clarke County voter. This election is going to happen during a pandemic. It's going to happen during flu season. And we have seen that the safest way for people to be able to vote during these elections is via absentee ballot. And we need to encourage everybody, make it as easy as possible. So I am, again, we're running out of time. We need time for these people to be able to receive that request form, to fill it out, send it in, and then still get their ballot, send that in too. So I hope that we can get an estimate for our budget amendment that we can vote on in the next coming weeks, so that we can have that happen. Because I think it's just integral for our democracy to exist during these times. And then the last thing I want to bring up is I really appreciate the mayor for going and assigning police use of force policy to the Police Accountability Board. I think that's a step in the right direction. But I do want to say, like, this body, while we do sometimes definitely rely upon recommendations from other bodies to give to us, oftentimes we don't. We realize that we are democratically elected to make those policy decisions, and especially when they're clear. I don't think that there's any more clear policy recommendation than having a policy in place that says that we do not use tear gas and beanbag bullets or rubber bullets against peaceful protesters. And I wish that we could just take up this policy ourselves, because I think what we're elected to do, and I think that the community is ready for that policy. They realize that that's the kind of community they want, one that uses communication to get through those kind of protests and situations. We have a great history in this town of peaceful protest. I've heard it's been decades upon decades since the last time we've ever had to use tear gas here, going back to the early 70s or 60s, if ever. So I would urge this body to go ahead and pick up that policy and enact that, because I think it's pretty clear cut. We have to wait for the Police Accountability Board to be created and do that. I think that's just justice delayed. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Allison?
The condolences tonight and the shocking news of us losing. I've just lost his name because it just reminded me of us losing Jerry. And I think I want to yield my time to a moment for us to reflect, because I don't remember us speaking of him as a group like we are for the many others who we've lost. And I guess it's a moment of silence because I'm having a hard time talking. But he left on June 7th, and it was shocking. And we've been very busy in the deep throes of a lot of intense work. And I think it just kind of slipped our mind. It hasn't slipped our mind, but it maybe just slipped our remembering to him. He was commissioner in District 6 since 2013. He served his district and the community well in that capacity and in every capacity because he gave so much. So I just wanted to get that on the record as we're pointing out how we're losing people that we haven't seen or been around in a long time. It's hard. So that's all I have to say tonight.
Thanks, Allison. Melissa?
Yeah, thank you, Allison, for those words about Jerry, because I feel like, even though there was an outdoor memorial service, it was really hard to properly mourn. And there's been so many times the difficult issues we've faced in the past month or so, 2 months now, since we lost him, when we really could have used his wisdom, because he had a lot of it. And over again, we're losing people. We lost 3 people to COVID last week in this community. We lost Mr. Allen today, and I only had a handful of interactions with him since I've been a part of this local government, but he was certainly a kind and good and fully decent human being, and it is a tremendous loss to this government, to this community, to his family and friends. Last week, the Clark Central community lost their longtime beloved former band director, Stephen Lawrence. I know there are a lot of people who are mourning him terribly. He had a tremendous impact on probably thousands of students throughout his career, brought a lot of joy to this community and to a lot of lives. And there was another death of a 32-year-old young woman who, from what I understand, was a University of Georgia custodial employee who possibly contracted COVID on the job cleaning locker rooms. It's apparent that this pandemic is running rampant on campus. People who are even being safe are getting it. It's being spread amongst younger populations who are now transmitting it into older populations. we've got to do everything we can. We're trying to do everything we can. And the fact that we have a state government that is tying our hands, and that we have people in our own community who are attempting to tie our hands. Anyone who would stand against the efforts that we're making to fulfill our number one duty as leaders in this community to promote the public health and safety, I can't consider them good and faithful members of the community. We've got to do whatever we can, and we're about to have 30,000 young people descend upon this community, many of them from communities that do not have the same values that we do. Many of them from families that believe this virus is a hoax. We've seen the pictures on social media of how school is starting in other communities, hundreds and hundreds of students packed into the hallways with no masks. You know, we see this pandemic spiking in our community, in our region, in the state, and it's only going to get worse. And I want to urge everyone out there to do everything they can to protect themselves and to protect their families and to protect everyone around them. And curses upon those who refuse to follow those protections. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Mariah?
Nothing for me this evening. Thank you.
Thanks. Patrick?
District 1 lost a good guy today, and my condolences to the Allen family, and to all the people we're losing, unfortunately. And just a PSA for just for anybody who's listening, that August 11th is a runoff, and please go to the Athens-Clarke County Board of Elections to start beginning the process of getting your November, start getting your absentee ballot. Keep that in mind. We do have the presidential election this year, and that's all I have.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for movement into executive session.
So moved.
Second?
I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards, second from Commissioner Parker. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll go ahead and let public information sign off so we can enter executive session. Thanks to everybody out there in the public. Stay safe.